A very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is The King of Spin Wins the Ashes, which captures the life of an English former professional cricket player. He played 54 test matches and 62 one-day internationals for England before being forced to retire due to recurring hip injury. He also and heroically played the entirety of his 14-year first-class career at Warwickshire County Cricket Club. He was also knighted in 2006 New Year Honours List, where he was awarded an MBE for his role in the successful Ashes winning squad against Australia in 2005. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Ashley Giles. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. You may have given me an extra award there. You said I was knighted. I wish, but
you got an MBE.
Yeah,
so that's fine. Yeah, not quite a knighthood, I know, but all good fun to talk about that on the show, nonetheless. So that's great stuff. In fact, other guys I've had on the show, people who have also had similar awards, and they've picked that up. Actually, Ashley, you're the first one to say that. So congratulations. Always a first.
No problem. Yeah, absolutely.
You started your cricket career as a fast bowler before an early injury forced you to become a slow left-arm spinner. Now, that is some change of bowling style, and to become an international slow left-arm spinner too is an incredible feat in itself, actually. What a change.
So I grew up bowling left-arm seamers from a really young age. Grew up on the village green playing cricket, which my whole family were involved in the cricket club down in Ripley in Surrey. I played for Surrey at under 11s, and I played 12s all the way up. And then I think it was about 14, 15, I think I was just playing too much cricket. Nowadays, they'd probably diagnose it as a stress fracture, but I had a bad back. So ended up having a rest or taking time off. And at that point, I was playing first team cricket for Guildford. And they said, well, rather than play first team as a bowler, go and play in the third team, practice your batting, which I did. And then one day in the nets, I bowled some spin because it didn't really hurt my back, just to help out, give people practice. And then that weekend, we weren't doing very well. The captain sort of said to me, do you want to bowl some of that filth you bowled in the nets?
Yes.
I said, absolutely, because as a bowler, you just want to be, you always want to be in the game. And I got 5 wickets.
Wow.
And then over the next 4 weeks, I got 21 wickets. And suddenly I was in the second team as a spin bowler and someone who batted. And it just sort of escalated from there until a point came where I had to really make a choice. And it was at that point where my career sort of moved north. Surrey didn't want me as a spinner. They'd always sort of groomed me as a seamer.
Surprising, very surprising.
Yeah. And I went off to Warwickshire, where my life changed, I guess.
Well, it certainly did. In actual fact, talking about Guildford, I lived in Guildford as well for a number of years. I know that cricket ground in Guildford quite well. Small boundaries, easy to get big scores, plenty of 4s and 6s. Must have been a joyful occasion to play at that ground, Actually, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was. I say I grew up in Ripley, the little village outside Guildford. But then, at sort of 12, 13, I had to move up a level to play a better standard, and went to Guildford. And mainly because the coach who was sort of leading my development was a guy called Brian Ruby, who coached there. And so I went there. It's a lovely ground. Not particularly spinner friendly from a square on. The boundaries are really small.
They are, yes.
But I worked it out and I had a lot of fun there. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time at Guildford.
Brilliant. That's good to hear. Very good to hear. You made your first class debut for Warwickshire in 1993, I believe, but it was 1996 when you gained a regular place in the side, and in doing so, winning the NBC Dennis Compton Award for being the most promising young player at the club. That's a huge start in first-class cricket, Ashley, isn't it? And what a prestigious award as well. Incredible.
Yeah, well, I played half of 1995. I played about 8 games in the championship, and so I got my foot in the door. But then, you're right. 96 when my career really launched, and I took 64 wickets, I think, that season in the championship, and I scored about 500 runs. And it just sort of, it shows. I think it shows sometimes how close you can be to going from playing second team cricket literally the year before. By the end of 96, I was on an A tour. and people were talking about me already playing for England, and it's
Wow.
it's a quick transition, but I absolutely loved that period. Just being able to play in what was a successful team with a lot of good players. I was a lot younger then, as we all were back
Absolutely.
96, 23-year-old, just loving my cricket, and absolutely in the sort of prime of my life.
I mean, was there any players at Warwickshire at the time that you looked up to? Any sort of players you thought, wow, I'm actually at the same club as these icons? Was there anybody in particular, or many, maybe?
Well, as I said earlier, I think that that changed moving north for a number of reasons. Really, I was very well looked after at home, probably too much, too spoiled.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful parents. So moving away was good for me. Joining Warwickshire at that stage, early 90s, 1992, was the sort of start of the transition for Warwickshire to become what became the side of the 90s. They won a trophy in 93, they won a treble in 94, double in 95, another trophy in 97. It was a really, really good environment to be in. And whether that be Bob Warmer as the head coach, Dermot Reeve as the captain, but players like Tim Hunton, Gladstone Small, Neil Smith, Alan Donald, Roger Twos, Nick Knight. I mean, the list goes on. But more than anything, it was the environment that you came through in, where it sort of encouraged you to express yourself, to learn the game, not be afraid to, as a young player, to really show what you can do. So I was very lucky, really enjoyed that.
Very lucky indeed. Sounds like a fabulous club, and some big names there you've mentioned too. I mean, it's a wonderful experience, and to win some, silverware quite regularly as well at that level was fantastic. Year after year, almost incredible story. Actually, it really is. I mean, your bowling technique came with a high trotting approach to the crease, climaxing in a rather energetic flurry of limbs, if it must be said. It was said that you did not have the most fluent spin bowling action, possibly because you began life as a fast bowler, but your bowling was accurate. You found plenty of turn and even more bounce, and you were a dependable spinner for England over 5 seasons at the turn of the century. I mean, that's not a bad innings, is it really, Ashley, when you think about it?
No, I was pretty happy with it, to be honest. I mean, I try and encourage young players nowadays to look at that journey where they've come from, where we all start. And for me, as I said, I started on the village green, just enjoying my cricket, running around, catching, hitting, bowling all day. That was what I wanted to do. So when you look then, to 98 to start off with, when I made my Test debut, but then even further on, and playing in Ashes series and playing in teams that win abroad, and being the spinner in that team, the lone spinner. I think sometimes, we get too wrapped up with where we are and how we're judged at that moment, and we should enjoy a lot more where we've come from and that success you've had along the way.
No, I quite agree. That's quite a grounded approach, actually, isn't it, Ashley? Fantastic. And you've just mentioned, and you were awarded your one-day international against Australia, actually, in May 1997, and 36 wickets in the 1998 season led to your first Test match against South Africa. Although it would be a further 2 years before you would play another Test for England, strangely enough. It must have been a real elation to get your one-day international and Test match debuts for England. But why another 2 years before you were recalled, Ashley? Was there a reason?
I mean,
I
think that was a time when selection was a lot more inconsistent. I think players, came in and out the side. There was times during the 90s where, we probably played about 30 players in an Ashes series, or against the Indies. So there was that factor. I think there's also a factor for me. At every level I've played, you mentioned my first class debut, and I made my debut in 93 and then didn't play a lot again until 95. Similar with Tess, 98, and then 2000 I went on tour. And it was almost at every level I've needed a bit of time to get a taste and then realise what it's all about and go away and make sure I'm properly prepared for it next time. And that's what I've tried to focus on. And that, there's some there's a lot of hard work in there. Of course, I'm not shying away from that, but there's always a bit of luck and timing in that as well, and competition, as you said. Who else is around?
Yes.
But then when I got back in 2000, yeah, I didn't let go of it for some time.
No, indeed, you didn't. And of course, have had since then an amazing career. And throughout your playing career, you had to justify your selection repeatedly, which is somewhat bizarre. And in early 2004, you came close to retirement after a modest tour of the Caribbean. Then you returned a match-winning 9-wicket haul at Lords later that summer, recording match figures of 9 for 210 in the first test at Lords against the West Indies, including your 100th test wicket, taking that incredible batsman Brian Lara's wicket, a fantastic scalp to have, I have to say, Ashley, which won you the Man of the Match award too, ensuring your newly endowed confidence was there to be seen by all. So 2004 was a mixed emotional bag of events, Ashley, wasn't it really?
Yeah. The beginning of 2004 wasn't a great place, but yeah, there was a sort of turning point for me around spending some time with our sports psychologist, and just, I guess, in short, try concentrate on the right things instead of the wrong things. That's the easy way to put it. I was worrying too much about what people thought, and things I couldn't control, rather than just working on what I did for the team, what value that had, and improving my game. And once I sort of got that sorted out in my head, I was off and running, and the transition was just massive. I went, as you say, close to just getting out of there to back-to-back 9-fers in test matches, Lords, and then you talked about Lords and the Man of the Match. Then at Edgbaston, my home ground, the next test match, I got 9 wickets again, 4 wickets the next. I had my best summer in test match cricket that summer. So an incredible. We talk a lot nowadays in all sports and life around the mental side of things, and how people sometimes struggle on that front, but back then, certainly, it made a massive difference for me.
No, quite rightly so too. And of course, you just mentioned this as well. You followed your good figures of 9 for 210. You followed this with your best test figures ever, of course, 9 for 122, which I think you just mentioned, in the second test at Edgbaston. And you were instrumental in England beating West Indies twice. In that series, you gained the nickname, I'll say this loosely, King of Spain, after a set of mugs ordered in 2000. It's quite a good story, this, for your testimonial year, were erroneously printed with that slogan instead of the King of Spin. A minor faux pas, but nonetheless a huge error, which goes down in the annals of history, of course, a thing of legends, Ashley, which I'm sure you laugh about today. But more about the second test at Edgbaston with your figures of 9 for 122. I mean, another big win against the West Indies. I mean, it's just incredible figures, isn't it?
I mean, I was just suddenly then in a purple patch,
Yes.
and the wicket spun at Edgbaston. I mean, as a team, we were in great form. We'd started that summer talking about how many tests we could win, what should we look at, and we actually said, well, we should win every one of them.
Yes.
Which was a big goal, big target, not done very often. And actually, that's how that summer turned out. We beat New Zealand 3-0 earlier in the summer.
Yes.
Beat West Indies 4-0, and all of that, of course, led towards the Ashes in 2005, which was the big one.
Absolutely. We'll come on to that shortly as well, because that was the big one. Quite agree with that. I mean, in regard to the King of Spain mugs, there were originally only 2 of these mugs produced, I understand, one of which you used for your coffee in the dressing room. And this mug was substantially stolen. So I don't know who stole that, one of the players, I guess, or somebody or other. Quite a funny story. And another on display in the club shop. However, after the error was published, or publicised, a further 200 mugs were produced with King Juan Carlos printed on the other side of the mug, and were subsequently snapped up by all the Warwickshire fans. I mean, a great and fascinating story, actually, this. I mean, fame comes in many guises, doesn't it, sometimes? Wonderful story.
I mean, it was something that started pretty low key, as you talked about. It was, a couple of mugs came back with a misprint.
Yes.
Then actually, I think it was first Nick Owen, who of Anna Nick fame off Breakfast News, who was doing local TV. Big cricket fan, Nick, as well, and a great friend, really nice guy. And he got hold of it and put it on the telly. And then my cricket, got better. suddenly it was in the papers, and then it just sprouted legs from there and ran. And it's weird. I mean, 17 years since I retired from cricket, I've held pretty much every position in terms of coaching, management, leadership. But it's still the one thing when I walk past people, I know they've clocked me. I go about 5 yards past and they shout the King of Spain after me. So it's great. It's all meant in good spirit.
Of course it is.
And the next range of mugs will be out soon.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great piece of marketing. It really is. All from a mistake, and you end up with this situation. You couldn't better it, could you? Really, it's brilliant. And of course, fans during the Ashes series of 2005 also regularly sang "Viva España" in your honour, Ashley. I mean, you must have felt loved by the fans. What a great story that. I mean, tell us more. I mean, how did you feel at the time with fans going "Viva España"? I mean, brilliant.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I've actually got a picture I took the day after we won the Ashes in 05 at Trafalgar Square. And you couldn't see, any pavement. You couldn't see any ground. There were so many people there. But actually, in the middle by Nelson's column, there is a Spanish flag there with "Gilo is our king" written on it. So,
brilliant.
Yeah, it's I say it's good fun. It was always meant in the best spirit. I think it was explained to Juan Carlos himself a few years ago. Which I don't think he had a clue what was going on or knew who I was, but all in good spirit and very, very enjoyable time.
No, it sounds like it, and I've never seen that flag actually at Trafalgar Square. So next time I'm down there, I'm going to go out and have a look at that. See if I can find that. Actually, there's an office I do use just off of Trafalgar Square with some business I do with National Grid. So next time I'm down there, I'm going to have a little walk around and see if I can find that flag.
I don't think it'll be there anymore. It was there the day after we won the Ashes.
It'll be gone now. Yeah, of course it would be.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought perhaps it might have been incarcerated there or something, but no. Okay, it's a great story.
We've done that famous, yeah.
Well, we all have our moments. We all have our fame. And you certainly are a famous cricketer. There's no doubt about that, Ashley. Also in the 2005 Ashes series, you continued to chip in with vital performances with bat and ball. You captured the wickets of all the top Australian batsmen at least once during the series, which is no mean feat. I can assure my listeners that is something to take hold of. You also hit the winning runs in the fourth test at Trent Bridge to give England a 2-1 lead, culminating in your career best 59 at the Oval and a century partnership with Kevin Pietersen, of course, great cricketer Kevin was, to ensure the draw in the final test at the Oval and seal a 2-1 series victory. So actually, please tell us more. I mean, I do remember watching with my heart in my mouth. A breathtaking moment, that fifth test, of course, but also your winning runs in the fourth. Take us through that story. That's something to be acclaimed, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I guess it's one of those where you rather be in control than not. When you sit on the sidelines and you watch something like this unfold, you absolutely, you're shaking with nerves, and you can see this goal ahead of you that we'd so long and so hard worked towards. But I think whatever runs we needed, it always felt like I was going to be needed at some point. I was going to have to play my part. And so at the end, Hoggy and I think we only put on 13, but it was quite a nerve-wracking time. We got over the line. I remember it being one hell of a celebration, and the guys back in the dressing room when we got back up the stairs. And I remember hearing that I think it was 8.6 million people watched it on TV at home, which back then was still now it would be a huge audience for cricket on the TV.
And I was one of those 8.2 million as well. That was me. I was there watching. Yes,
and it was and on terrestrial TV, obviously on Channel 4. So. Through that series and every test match, the sort of cricket fever in the country just kept building and building and building.
It did.
And going 2-1 up at Trent Bridge was amazing, and just took us, as you talked about the Oval, that one step closer to realising that dream.
Absolutely, the Holy Grail was in your grasp. And of course, in those situations, you can almost touch the winning line, but getting there is quite difficult, isn't it? And you have all the doubts going through your mind. Oh dear, if I lose my wicket, what's going to happen? Those kind of decisions, those kind of thoughts must have been going through your mind, I would have thought, Ashley, at the time. Even Huggy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is so much that goes through your head around the what ifs, and you know, could we win this? We're so close, but then the other side kicks in that, well, can't throw it. What if we throw it away now? And
Yeah,
almost it works so quickly in your brain, and it's trying to control those thoughts sometimes that are the big difference, and just trying to stay on task and on track,
exactly.
and what's ahead of you. But yeah, for us, talked about that journey of where you start. Most of us. Well, I was the oldest guy in that team in 2005.
Oh, really? That's
and
interesting. Yeah.
we'd not won the Ashes for 20 years. So all of us had seen a whole cohort of players come through the England team and never win the Ashes. And there we stood with that responsibility, and going into the last Test match that we, as you said, we almost had it in our grasp.
Absolutely. And you're right about the Ashes. I can remember the previous Ashes when Bob Willis decimated the Australians with a haul of 10 wickets in the final innings of the last Test. I mean, that was one hell of a win, wasn't it? Going back in those days.
Yeah,
sensational.
Yeah, that was early on in my time. Yeah, that was 81 probably.
It was 81, yeah, 81, 82, something around there.
8 years old.
Yeah, with Bob Willis doing his bit, and he did indeed. And Ian Botham, of course, with the bat. I mean, it was really one magnitude of a win, that a huge win. But this 2005 win equally as brilliant. I mean, fantastic. It's always it's always good to get one over the Australians, isn't it? And to win the Ashes is monumental. I think it's better than winning the World Cup, personally. I think the Ashes is the World Cup between two teams.
Yeah, look, I think. I mean, it is the old enemy. I think that at that time, all the history that went with it not winning for 20 years.
Yeah.
The quality of that Australian team, it was almost like the Galacticos of cricket.
They were a good side.
And everything just sort of came together for us as well. It was a journey getting there. It took us a full 5 years to develop as a team under Duncan Fletcher and Nasser, then Michael Vaughan. But yeah, it's probably the greatest Test series of all time. I don't think many would argue with that, with the way the series went. And more than anything, it's a privilege to have played in it. To be just a bit part player in a series that's so big as that.
Oh, absolutely, quite agree completely. That was a famous win in 2005. And of course, you mentioned that Australian side, they were the Galacticos of cricket. I mean, they had some huge players in that team. And of course, the fifth Test was still to come. The Australians would have been up for it. And, a huge series win, without doubt. I mean, to put things into perspective, this was an innings that helped seal England's first Ashes victory for, as you say, 20 years. The famous 2005 Ashes win over Australia. I mean, what a match actually really was. And I can, I can hear the commentator at the time, actually. I got it ringing in my ears, actually. So at the end, those final runs from you to win and to get over that draw in the fifth Test, the commentator said, "And England have won the Ashes." And that kind of tone, wonderful tone of cricket. There must be some fabulous stories here from within the England team in the dressing room. I mean, I'd love to have been in that dressing room after that match. I really would. Must have been amazing. There was a champagne flowing, actually.
It was a weird day because for much of the day we thought we might be throwing the Ashes away.
Yes.
Certainly for probably 2/3 of it. And even in that last session when I batted a long time with Kevin, I don't think at any point, even when we were like 300 runs ahead, that we thought we'd done it, and there was not enough time left in the game. But, but that's how focused you are. I think it was only when I remember getting out and then you sort of look up and take everything in, and there's people hanging out of windows, there's people sitting on roofs, there's the ground is absolutely heaving, there's a standing ovation. But again, all of that, we loved what it did for the nation in terms of lifting everyone, I think. But for us, it was also about our families who went on that journey, and those guys in the dressing room, the players and the management. It was a really special time, and it was quite a celebration for a couple of days, I'd say.
I would have thought so too. And I think back to last year when we lost to the Australians in the Ashes last year, 2023. I mean, we went into that series as not favourites exactly, but a great English side last year. They were a good side, weren't they, England?
Yeah,
Okay, the weather let us down. We did have the problems with the weather. Being in winning positions, the weather always goes against us, doesn't it? In this country, let's be honest. And to actually lose to the Australians last year, that's very disappointing. I felt, I was grieving after that test series, that series last year. I really did. So I was full of hope personally to win the Ashes. That'd been amazing. But
yeah.
alas,
We didn't lose the Ashes last year. We drew the
no,
Ashes last year.
true. But they retained the Ashes because they
Yeah,
were
yeah, they retained the
partners.
Ashes. But yeah, I think we had moments last summer that I think the team genuinely be disappointed about, because they had moments
Definitely.
to finish off a couple of Test matches and they didn't. And that's what ended up costing England. And when you play against Australia, wherever you play them, those moments you can't afford to take your foot off the throat. You've really got to
Go
push
for it.
forward. Yeah.
Absolutely right. But of course, there's nothing better than winning the Ashes out in Australia as well, isn't there? Let's be honest. We've had some great times out there winning the Ashes series.
Well, yeah, I haven't. I
You
wouldn't know.
haven't personally, you wouldn't
Um,
know, but there's been some great moments out there. And it's
hmm.
always great to rub their noses in it. So any Australians listening to this show, I do apologise. We don't dislike you, honestly. But we just love our cricket. We both do. Two great cricketing nations.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was a huge accolade to come, and you were awarded an MBE in the 2006 New Year's Honours list for your role in the successful Ashes winning squad. I mean, what a moment in your life, Ashley. I mean, please tell us more about how you felt at the time, and of course, receiving your MBE. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, look, those things are a nice bonus. For me, it's much more. Yeah, it's much more about the team stuff, the family stuff.
Yes.
It was a great honour to meet the Queen, and I was lucky to meet the Queen on, I think, 4 occasions, and to go to the palace with my wife and the kids. But there are people out there who get medals and gongs for much more important things than winning games of cricket. But I always see it as a fantastic honour and a privilege. But the moments that really stay with you are those moments on the field with your teammates, and you almost still hear that crowd, that final day at the Oval. All of that is very magical memories.
Yeah, and also the smell of the cricket ground too, as part of the atmosphere, that leather hitting willow sound crack across the ground. I mean, they're magic moments, aren't they? And hearing the crowd as well, getting totally involved and behind the team. They must stay with you forever. They really must. They're moments that are life lasting, aren't they? They really are.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think you probably spend a lot of time as well. And unfortunately, when you're playing at that level, worrying about other things, performance and winning and losing, and your form. I don't know whether it's just me. I don't think it is. People always talk about where when you go out, it must be so much fun to put that shirt on and play for England.
Yes.
Well, there are some times like that, but there's a lot of hard times that are involved in that because of everything that goes with it. But yeah, I'm extremely. I think I used the word earlier. I feel privileged. I feel very proud to have represented my country on so many occasions.
No, quite right, Ashley. I mean, I've got to ask this question. What is it like when you walk onto the field of play, knowing that you're down the order a little bit? What goes through your mind when you're walking across the field, up to the wickets, all the eyes are on you to join the field of play? What goes through your mind at that time? You're smelling the atmosphere, you're looking and hearing and seeing the atmosphere. What's going through your mind as you walk on? Do you get any doubts? Do you think, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I
Well,
must stay?
it varies on your. I think it varies where your game is and where your form is. I think when you're in a good spot, you're thinking absolutely take that atmosphere in and suck it up and enjoy it. But then actually just getting back into focusing on your role and your job and the process. When you're not in a good spot, you end up thinking about everything that could go wrong.
Of course.
All the stuff that's said about you when it does go wrong, and that it almost becomes self-fulfilling. But that's in the career of a sportsman, happens a lot. That's just the ups and downs of form, and the best guys are certainly the ones who are able to stay level and just keep at that standard consistently.
Quite agree. I mean, also facing your first ball of your new innings. You know, you're there. You've got to almost as a cricketer, you've got to play your way into the game, haven't you? Really. So facing that first ball is a bit of a, I would imagine, a bit of a thought process that goes through your mind. You've got to defend that ball, get yourself into the game. I mean, to lose your wicket on the first ball would be awful, wouldn't it? Really would be. First ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously your most susceptible time because when you're having not faced a ball, everything's new.
Of course.
But it comes back to process again. You know, you go into to what, you know, when you're walking down the stairs, and I talk about this bit with players and in talks, you start to get your game head on, and you think about what the bowler's trying to do, how he delivers it, how he's trying to look to get you out. What have you got to do there for? What you got to, you know, if it's a quick bowler, you've got to move early, get in a position, make sure you're balanced, watch the ball. If it's certain areas, you leave it. If it's, you know, you want to play with a straight bat, it's, you know, and once you get into that, it just takes away the edginess. And ultimately then you just get in, it's almost like I'd call loading the computer.
Okay.
Because once the guy starts running up, you're just looking for that ball where it's coming out. And then you react, because at that pace you've got very little time to move or to decide and move and then play the shot.
Yeah, it's milliseconds, isn't it? The ball leaving the bowler's hand to bearing up at you as a batsman. It's milliseconds, isn't it? You've got to. That's a quick thinking. So you must know. Obviously, you train hard for this, Ashley, and you know the bowlers. You know how they bowl. You look at their style. So you're pre-prepared, aren't you, at the time, I suppose, when you go on? But obviously, you don't know how the ball's going to move and turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you do all that, you know, the preparation bits in your practice, and
of course it is,
your analysis of the opposition, and then when it comes down to it, it's just, you know, you and the bowler, or, you know, a lot of the time for me and the batsman, and you just got to try and concentrate on doing your job.
Absolutely right. And then in 2006, a recurring hip injury forced you out of both the Test and ODI, one-day international sections of England's tour to India that year. However, you gave an interview stating that although you had at one point feared your career might be in danger, you're now a lot more confident and happy after being diagnosed with a sportsman's hernia. Sounds awful. I mean, this must have been hugely disappointing, Ashley. I mean, hernias aren't much fun, are they?
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately the hernia wasn't the issue. I had massive hip trouble. I mean, I did have a hernia, but it seems that in part of my rehab, coming back from, I think, the original hip injury, that I pulled a hernia. So that sort of was a bit of a red herring, and I ended up that summer going, because of, I think, the hype of the Ashes in 05, and a number of us were injured. A couple of us went over to America. You know, they sought out the best specialists. Simon Jones and I both went to the States for operations, and actually that was the first time I started to really improve, and that got me back on track. But ultimately, you might go into it, you know, it didn't last that long, and I injured the hip again, and that was pretty much it then for me. It was curtains.
Yeah, which is a sad end to quite an illustrious and wonderful career. At the end of October 2006, after spending time in India with the England Champions Trophy squad, you were past fit for selection again and took Monty Panesar's place in the team for the first test at Brisbane. However, you were dropped for the third test in the series, with Monty Panesar reclaiming his place. So it seemed you were still nursing an injury of some kind there, Ashley, or was there other, you know, form-related concerns?
No, I mean, not at that point. I don't think I was the same bowler.
Yes.
I hadn't played cricket for a year. You know, I hadn't played a first-class game for a year going into the Ashes series. That's quite a big challenge. It was one we were all prepared to take on. But yeah, you know, I played the first few Test matches, and Monty came back in for the third. I was dropped, and that was the last time I played for England, because, I mean, other events took over as well. My wife was diagnosed with a brain tumor back in England, and that sort of, you know, your mindset changes when you get that sort of news. Cricket's the least important thing in the world, and all I was focused on was getting home.
Yeah, it refocuses your thoughts completely, and you're absolutely right, because family It does come first, regardless of what you're doing as a profession. And you did fly home from the 2006 Ashes tour of Australia in that December of 2006 to, as you say, care for your wife who had fallen critically ill. I mean, that's a huge blow, as you said, Ashley. And your beautiful wife, Steen, I hope I pronounced her name correctly.
Stina.
Stina has fought hard to get rid of this dreadful illness and continues her battle today. So we all wish Stina and yourself, of course, Ashley, the very best of health for the future and, of course, a full recovery. But out of that as well, the Giles Trust Brain Tumour Fund was created. And I have to mention this because it's very important. I'm a very charitable man as well, and I think charity is important, which was founded in 2015 by yourself, Ashley, and your wife, Stina, and has raised more than £1 million to date. But you urgently need to raise more money to fund further research, to purchase more equipment, and to continue to provide support for brain tumour patients and their families. So please tell us more about this incredible charity, Ashley.
Yeah, so you're right. I am a co-founder, but the energy and everything behind it is my wife. She, as I talked about, 2007 was her first brain tumor. And she had the operation, had it removed, and then she got to 2012 and she had a recurrence, 2 more tumors. She couldn't have those operated on because of where they were sitting. She had a different sort of treatment, radiotherapy, that, just years earlier, she wouldn't have been able to have because that technology didn't exist and it's expensive. And so I think after that, having wanted after the first one to just forget it and move on almost and, put it to bed, she really decided that she needed to do something, give something back. And that's sort of how the Giles Trust was born. We are the QE Hospital in Birmingham's designated brain tumour charity.
Fantastic.
Steen does a lot of work for the charity, and as you say, we're relatively small compared to some charities. We've raised over £1 million for various things, including research nurse and equipment, the ability for families to stay with loved ones when they're having treatment, and all of that. And we're very proud of it. And all the money goes to the right place. We don't have a huge amount of overheads, and the money goes to the people who need it most.
Do you have many supporters? Do you have a support base that's quite large in their numbers, for example?
Yeah, we do. I think around Birmingham, we have a really good following and supportive following. There are so many charities out there. There's a lot of competition for money, and none of them really, no one can say one's more important than the other. But what we do know about brain tumours and the stats is that they're the biggest cancer killer in under 40s.
Absolutely.
And of all the funding for cancers, brain tumours only gets 2%. So when you look at that, biggest killer, 2% of the overall funding, there's a lot of work to be done, and we're very keen that we do as much as we can. We're very lucky that Stina's with us. She still has 2 brain tumours in her head that we always talk about. They're behaving themselves, but she's one of the lucky ones. There are many who aren't as lucky as her.
I quite agree, and may Stina forever recover and come back to full fitness eventually at some point. And I wish you both a huge success there as well. Best of luck. I mean, talking about charity, I will speak to you after the show actually, because I've got a potential fundraiser for you, which will raise money every year after year after year. I mentioned about your supporter base because it's all about those guys too, giving them something, and giving them something will help raise funds for the Giles Train Brain Tumour Fund as well. So I'll speak to you afterwards, Ashley, and hopefully we can get this sorted for you. And there's no cost to the charity, no cost to yourselves whatsoever. It's really a no-brainer charity-wise, and will raise you funds year after year after year, payable every month. So I'll speak to you after the show.
Okay, great.
So a little plea to the listening public on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. Please Google the Giles Trust Brain Tumour Fund and donate today. It obviously is a very, very, very good charity, and a charity that's worth supporting. And of course, back to cricket. You were not selected for the England's 2007 World Cup squad, nor in England's 2007 Summer Performance squad. And on Warwickshire's pre-season tour, you suffered some hip discomfort again, which revealed a need for an operation, which you just mentioned, where you went to the States, of course, for that operation. It kept you out for most of the 2007 English County Series, and subsequently, in August 2007, you officially announced your retirement from all forms of cricket. Following advice from doctors in light of your injury, a huge decision in some ways, Ashley, but in hindsight, I suspect the right decision too. You always know when to retire at sporting level.
Yeah, it was taken out of my hands. Really, I couldn't have continued. Going through injury, operation, the length of rehab it takes.
Yes.
And ultimately, I mean, since I've had that hip replaced, so you're looking at bone on bone pain. I don't know whether you've ever had that, but when you have that, your body almost doesn't allow you to function properly.
It's arthritis, isn't it? It's basically arthritic.
Yeah, so that was the end of the chapter. When we talked about starting that journey.
Yes.
And it was quite hard at the time because, I think for sports people, so much of what you do on the pitch or with your team, it just sort of defines you. It becomes you more than just a job, and the profile, everything that goes with it. 1 minute you're on that train, the next minute you're off. But for me, I mean, the transition was quick in that, a month later, I became director of cricket at Warwickshire. So I didn't have much time to linger or feel sorry for myself. I've got to get back on the horse and do a different job.
Absolutely. And there's always a new door opens when one closes, as we all know in life. It just happens that way for the right reasons, or sometimes not the right reasons. But following your playing career in 2012, the England and Wales Cricket Board confirmed you would become England's limited overs head coach, taking charge of the 2020 and one-day international team. So how did this work out, Ashley? Exciting?
Yeah. Well, I did 5 years of Warwickshire as director of cricket and head coach. And in that time, we moved from probably one of the worst teams in the country to the best team in the country.
Yes.
Won the county championship, won at Lords, almost did the double in my last year. And then I took on the England job, and it was a fantastic opportunity. I think in my career, if I have one regret, I should have stayed at Warwickshire probably at that point, just for a bit longer. We just built a team that probably could have challenged for 3 or 4 years in a row in the championship.
Exactly.
But I went to England. The bits of it were excellent. We finished second in runners up in the Champions Trophy. But then I was only there for about 15 months in the end, so it was a relatively short period. But like all of these things, you learn as you go. You do. You learn, you pick yourself up, and you go again.
You do indeed. You do indeed. You also had spells as an interesting term, this white ball head coach and director of cricket with England, as well as holding similar roles at county level, as you just mentioned, with Warwickshire, and of course Lancashire as well. I mean, how did these roles here outside of your playing game come about, firstly, of course, and of course your successes at this level? You've mentioned the successes at Warwickshire. What about Lancashire? And of course, also white ball head coach and director of cricket with England.
Yeah, so after I was head coach with England and with the white ball teams, I went to Lancashire. It's the first time I'd been to another, I'd operated with another county outside of Warwickshire, but great club, great history, and again, very privileged to have led them, and very, very proud that in year one we got promoted back to Division 1, and we won the T20 Blast at Edgbaston.
Yes,
my home ground. I think that's the last major trophy Lancashire have won. So again, very, very pleased and proud of that. A great group of people, great club. But I spent 2 years there, and then I moved back to Warwickshire in a slightly different role. During that period, I took on I did a master's degree up in Manchester. I perhaps always see myself moving more from tracksuit to suit, or dressing room to boardroom, if you like, and that helped that process. And I left Lancashire, and nothing to do with Lancashire at all. We'd never relocated. The family was still in the Midlands, and I was finding that more and more challenging. So I ended up back at Warwickshire in more of a suited or chino and polo top position and tracksuit. And that's sort of been the beginning of the rest of my career in terms of administration, a slightly adapted role. But, you know, I had very fond memories of all of those jobs. And coaching is really special because actually when you're coaching teams, you're in the middle of it all the time. You're really helping players go from A to B, helping them on that journey. And it's really rewarding because you get to build some really special relationships.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, absolutely. Whilst you're at Lancashire, of course, did you ever get involved in a Lancashire versus Yorkshire match or the War of the Roses? Did any of those matches come up in your tenure?
Yeah, we had, obviously, in the 2 years, we had 4 T20 matches between the two sides. I think we came out on top in 3 of them. So
wonderful.
That's always a good place to be as a Lancashire head coach. That's always the games that the Lancashire fans want to win.
Absolutely, yeah. You can lose all the rest, but as long as you beat Yorkshire, that's fine, isn't it? Yeah. So they go down in history as a top coach. I mean, following your departure as England's limited overs head coach in April 2014, you spent the summer months as match analyst for ESPN. Great show. Oh, what a great job that is. Also playing in the Warwickshire Premier League for Nuneaton Cricket Club. Now, I love this little story, I really do. In return for a charitable donation and setting a world record by climbing Mount Kilimanjaro to play in the highest game of cricket ever played. Also, I hasten to add, for charity. I mean, what an experience that must have been, Ashley. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So that summer was, you know, I've not had many summers off in my career in the game. Playing for Nuneaton was all linked to the Giles Trust.
Yes.
Really enjoyed that. And then, I got an opportunity to go up to Kilimanjaro and play the highest cricket match ever. And that, I mean, it can't be beaten. There's not a higher flat piece of ground on earth where you can play a proper game. And we had umpires, we had scorers, we had a proper pitch. We had to play minimum 10 overs. An amazing experience. Hard work, really hard work. But there was a group of 30 of us who set off on that trek, and all of us got to the top. So,
how was the climb, by the way? Playing the cricket was the easy part, I'm sure, but the climb, was it?
Yeah, the climb. I mean, in terms of the actual physical nature, it's not particularly hard, but the response to altitude. I had a lot of headaches and really struggled at times. But in the end, we got there. And they were really great memories. I can
imagine.
I mean, we probably spent too long at the top playing this match because people generally only go up and come straight back down again because of the altitude. But really, really fond memories with a fantastic group of people.
Outstanding. And of course, when you're playing at altitude as well, when I've been in places at altitude, for example, I lived in Mexico City for 2 years, and that's about 3,000 meters above sea level. And of course, the Masai Mara as well, just under 3,000, about 2,800 meters above sea level. And lack of oxygen, isn't it? You know, the breathing is extremely difficult. So if you're doing something active like playing cricket, that must have been something you had to prepare yourself for.
Yeah, we didn't do a lot of running around, to be fair, because it wasn't possible. It's not very healthy. The only person who did was Makai Arantini. He was up there, a South African fast bowler.
Right.
And he just ran everywhere. But he's a completely different kettle of fish specimen.
Yeah, it's a different human being altogether, a different strain.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great story. I mean, you must look back at that as well. I mean, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is one thing, and to play cricket at the top of there and in a world record situation, that's a fascinating story. It really is. What to tell your grandchildren, Ashley?
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I say it can never be beaten.
I can't.
So, nothing, and something I hadn't really planned to do. And if I could do it again, it's the sort of thing I'd love to do with my kids. That would be, if you ever get the window to do it, because it is a great experience, and that coming down bit when you're full of all this oxygenated blood, suddenly hits you. The most unbelievable feeling when you get back down to the bottom.
Oh, the real buzz is almost a drug, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And then, of course, in July 2023, just last year, you joined Worcestershire County Cricket Club as chief executive. An interesting appointment, Ashley. So, how is it all shaping up at Worcester County Cricket Club, and of course for the forthcoming 2024 season? How's that role going on?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've been here for 9 months,
Yes.
just over. I suppose the most relevant thing, or the biggest thing in my intro is the state of the ground. We've had 8 full floods this winter.
Oh, wow.
So the topic of whether playing at New Road, which is one of the most iconic grounds in the country, is sustainable is the a very live debate, and as chief executive, as I said to the members, my job is to look at all options, and some of those options are obviously to stay here because it is so iconic, but also to perhaps look at do the team need to move at some point, because we can't go on literally. We're just throwing money down the drains.
Yeah, it's that part of the world, isn't it? What I call the land of the wet, really, where, also the clouds sweep up from the southwest, go across Worcester, of course, head up to Manchester. So Old Trafford's pretty similar, isn't it, really, in terms of a lot of rain falls in Manchester, and so on. So, obviously Worcester's the same. I mean, is there a floodplain round where the ground is at all, Ashley? Because it's...
Yeah, I mean, we're just off the River Severn.
Oh, okay.
We're on a natural floodplain, and when I'm talking about flooding, we are the only ground in the country that fully floods at one corner, the lower corner of the ground. At its worst, it's probably about 9 foot, and at the other end, it's probably about 5. So,
Wow.
yeah, we're not talking a few puddles. We're talking a boating lake.
Yeah, it's a serious problem, isn't it? So the potential of moving to a new ground somewhere which doesn't attract so much water is probably a good option to discuss with the members.
Yeah,
but no one likes to move, do they? No, it's the ground. It's the home of Worcestershire.
It's my again, my main role is the sustainability of the club on and off the field.
Absolutely.
That has to be number one priority.
I quite agree. And you're also a lifelong supporter of Queen's Park Rangers Football Club. And I was actually out in Tenerife a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the bar there in Tenerife, which is the official Queen's Park Rangers bar in the Canaries, run by a good friend of mine, Pete Phillips. So if he listens, there you are, Pete. Little piece for you there. The official Queen's Park Rangers Football Club bar in the Canaries. Fantastic. It's called Diamonds, by the way. We've had a few iconic footballers on the show. And one notably being Terry Fenwick, of course, a former Ars favourite, of course. So what are your favourite moments as an Ars fan?
Well, actually, one of them would be Terry Fenwick heading in at Wembley in 82, was it?
82, yeah, 1982.
Yeah, I went to, my brother and my dad and I went to the final and the replay. Yeah, so I remember Fenwick scoring. That was more my era of watching, really. I mean, I'm probably a mixture of loyal and crazy. I still follow them.
Of course you do. It's in your blood.
I only follow the score. I wouldn't know who's playing for them. But that 80s period, yeah, it was, like Clive Allen and Simon Stainrod.
Oh, yeah. Stan Bowles and the like.
That's slightly before me. Stan Bowles was probably more late 70s, I would have thought, than that era. Like Jerry Francis as well. And
yes. Great side then, Queen's Park Rangers, weren't they?
Yeah, they were a good side, yeah. I've got my kit somewhere. It doesn't come out of the cup.
Well, I just hope they stay up in the Championship this year, because they're a great club. Terry Fenwick was on my show a few weeks ago. We talked about Queen's Park Rangers there, and, lovely fella, Terry, top man. And it goes on like that. I've even got an ex-QPR player coming on my show later on, actually. I think in May, maybe June. Terry Mancini. Do you remember Terry Mancini?
Yeah, he's before me. But yeah, I remember
Rangers.
Yeah.
So he's coming on, and he also played for my club, Aldershot Football Club, as well. So we'll be talking about that too.
Right.
So, great stuff. Football, sport, wonderful interests. So apart from your ongoing charity work, what other interests do you have outside of cricket, Ashley?
What do I like to do? Well, I'm pretty busy with a job. I like spending time with the family. Of
course you do.
I love playing golf. The weather's not been too great for that of late. My home club's been closed a bit, but we like to travel when we can. Our favourite place in the world is probably Florida, which we feel lucky enough to go to a number of times. And I think for me, because the weather's pretty much guaranteed, but there's no cricket distraction there either.
That's true.
But it's very much a happy place and has been since the kids were little.
Yeah, it's good to have those memories, isn't it, in life? I'm a world traveller myself, and I live partly out in Thailand as well, so it's wonderful. And travelling is an absolute buzz. It really is, and seeing places, meeting new people, making those moments, the magic, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? Creating those memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's you can have whatever things you want, you own, but it's the memories and the moments that are the most special. A friend of mine and I were talking about this last night, actually, and it is those special moments with family and friends that I think you treasure.
Absolutely, quite agree. And as I always say to people as well, it's those memories and those moments you create stay with you forever. You can't be taxed on them. And they are the true wealth, aren't they, in life? Money, you can get money tomorrow, you can earn money at any stage, but memories and moments, once you don't create them, you haven't got them. And get out there now and travel and make those moments. Quite agree with that.
I think it's I listened to a different podcast, not one of yours, and it was around that and the difference between holding something, goods, or buying a car,
yes,
compared to the moments, and it is the moments are you get two hits, you get the leading up to it and the excitement of going,
yes,
you get those almost those photographic moments in your head that last forever, and I think that's what's special, and sharing them with someone else. That's certainly, maybe I'm just getting old, but that's certainly how I feel more of late.
Well, that's how I feel as well, I have to say, Ashley. So maybe I'm getting old too, but none of us are getting any younger, let's be honest. So, keep making those moments, keep making them. And I wish, obviously, Stina as well, the best of health, as I said earlier on. So that's great, and keep that going. Fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Looking at the clock, and it's been a huge pleasure as always. And as always, we could talk forever, Ashley, about your life, and of course an amazing life in professional cricket, of course, too. But it's been a huge pleasure, as I said, as always. And as always, the pleasure is all mine, and of course the show's audience, when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. So thank you, Ashley. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Ashley Giles as a huge clap of applause. Fabulous discussion. Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you don't mind, if you stay on for a couple of minutes after I wrap up the show, Ashley, I want just to briefly mention about what I can help you with charity-wise for your wonderful charity. The next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is British Sports Reporter of the Year 1998, where my special guest will be Harry Harris, who was a double winner of the British Sports Journalist of the Year award and was honoured by the prestigious Variety Club of Great Britain with their Silver Heart Trophy for contribution to sports journalism. Harry Harris is also twice winner of the Sports Story of the Year award and the only journalist ever to win the accolade twice. Harry Harris is one of the most influential football columnists for 3 decades and one of the most acclaimed investigative journalists of his generation on the London Evening News, Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, Daily Express, Daily Star, Sunday Express, I should say, and of course BT Sport. So another exciting show to look forward to on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, available of course on all podcast media platforms and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube TV channel. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.